Another Friday, more football for us to break down or preview here on the NY Sports Index. That is Jamie Eisner. I am Chris Schubert. Welcome back in another edition of the show. Both New York teams in action over the weekend. We will start with the Giants, the Eagles. We'll get into the Jets taking on the Bengals. Who's going to play quarterback for the Jets? The Knicks start their season 1-0. The Islanders can't be stopped. We'll try to get to it all here on this latest edition of the Index. Jamie, happy Friday. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm happy I avoided the FBI raids. And I'm happy that we can sit here and we can talk about some sports and feel like this is gonna be a sad show. I feel like we're just not gonna be. I mean, there's some interesting stuff to talk about, like obviously with the Islanders and whatnot, but this is not gonna be. I don't think either one of our teams are winning this weekend. They're both fairly heavy touchdown underdogs on the road. The Jets are the Jets, but I guess at least the Giants could be entertaining. I mean, look, I guess that they beat the Eagles already. I guess that's what you want to hang your hat on, but yeah, this could be a tough weekend for New York football fans in general.
Why do you think I have the Mets hat on here on the Friday
I
edition of the
see.
show? None of my other
It's a tough
gear
season.
really would make sense here so far. Let's start with the Giants. And it's so interesting to me, Jimmy. I've been thinking about this all week leading up to the Friday show. Obviously disappointed with the way last Sunday ended, giving up the 33 points in the fourth quarter, giving away that game multiple times and not coming away with the victory. And you feel disappointed because I don't know if the Giants could have been a playoff team with a win, but 3-4 is a lot different than 2-5. 3-4, you can start to dream, you can start to believe, you can start to play out the different scenarios where they can get in. At 2-5, it feels a little bit more of a daunting task. But all week I've been thinking about this is now a real interesting test for this team to see how they respond to this type of adversity. But I just hate the opponent for them to deal with this adversity against a Philadelphia Eagles team that seemingly found itself offensively after hitting a little bit of a rough patch there a couple of weeks ago. Their passing offense looked much better last week against Minnesota. Yes, you did beat them. It was on a short week, so you do have to put that caveat out there. And so Jamie, I find myself conflicted because I'm excited for the Giants to play football because I want to see how they deal with the adversity, but it feels like one of the worst matchups you could pull out of the hat for us to really see if they'll be able to handle the adversity.
Yeah, I mean they may or may not have to play AJ Brown. We'll kind of see what happens with him as we get deeper into this weekend and see if he ends up playing on Sunday or not. But yeah, there are a few differences, obviously, Chris. You brought up the first one, which is, obviously you're not playing on a short week. The other difference is you're playing in Philadelphia, not New York. And the third big difference, and one that's going to be a huge factor in this game, is that Jalen Carter is going to play. And that is not an underrated aspect of, playing the Eagles with or without Jalen Carter is a significant difference. And the Giants, basically, they told us, the Eagles, that, the turf at MetLife was a reason why they decided to give, Jalen Carter a little bit extra time from his heel injury to get ready. He came back last week. He's going to play here this week. But look, the reality of the situation is that there are two, and we're going to talk about this a lot. We talked about it in the preseason. We talked about it on Wednesday's show. We're going to talk about it going forward. There are two parallel themes that are running side by side with each other for the Giants season as you keep going. There is the Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterboo future of this team, which also includes, Thomas. Hopefully they sign Emmanuel Laminor as well, who's having a great season at right tackle, although he's a free agent. So there is the we want to look good for the future parallel line. Then there's the other parallel line of that Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are living on, which is the hype, the excitement, the, hey, things are going to look good. We might have our guy is great, but are they going to keep their jobs long enough line? And I think this is where it's going to be interesting because I don't know if Jackson Dart just looking good this season is enough to save everybody's jobs. It gives them a chance because if he didn't, everybody would be gone. But I don't know if it's just enough if they also don't pair that with winning some games. Now, I understand you came close. You almost beat the Cowboys in week 1. That was not a Jackson Dart thing. You almost beat the Denver Broncos last week, but at the end of the day, you're 2-5. And I know we went through the records, what we thought they could be, and what Daboll needs to do to save his job. And I'm not sure there's a specific win number. Like if he hits 7 wins, he's safe. Or hits 8 wins, he's safe. I don't know what that is. But I also don't think they can go 4-13. And even if Jackson Dart looks good, have the confidence and ownership that they maybe don't have somebody else that can make them look better. It's kind of this complicated relationship. But from a fan perspective, what I am looking forward in this game is this is the Eagles' second shot at Jackson Dart. Nobody has played Jackson Dart twice yet in the National Football League. So this is going to be a really big test for him, in particular, to say, okay, I am facing a defense for the second time. What have I learned? What do I need to get better at? How is the defense going to respond to me? Because what you're going to see, and you see it a lot in the NFL, I know the term sophomore slump, but the other side watches films too. So a lot of times you see these young quarterbacks that have a lot of success early on, they come back in year 2 and CJ Stroud and Jaden Daniels and some of these other guys that you look at and go, okay, doesn't look quite as easy for them in year 2 as it did in year 1. Well, this is going to be a little bit of a mini test for Jackson Dart because this is a very, very smart defensive coach on the other side in Vic Fangio. It is a good defense on the other side, even if they do have some issues at corner outside of Quinyon Mitchell. But this is going to be a big test for me. So I am looking to see, does Jackson Dart look like it can adjust to the league adjusting back to him? Or does Philadelphia just overwhelm him now that they've had a chance to watch him play against them? Now he's only had a couple weeks and can kind of readjust their defense to tackle him, obviously with reinforcement back like Jalen Carter. So for me, it is all about how Jackson Dart looks and how he responds in a game against somebody that's already played him before in his career.
Yeah, to your first point about the 2 tracks that the Giants are on, I while you were talking, I was kind of trying to answer the question that you were posing. And I do think there is a world where Jackson Dart can play well and Jackson Dart can continue to grow and show that year 1 development that I think we all want to see from a young quarterback to cement him as the guy that you build around. And if the results don't follow, I think there's a world where Joe Shane is the guy that keeps his job because Joe Shane is the guy that's going to get credit for trading back into the first round. Joe Shane is going to be the guy that gets the credit for selecting Jackson Dart, and he's going to get the lion's share of the resume building of I'm the guy that took Jackson Dart, whereas the record, whether it's 4 wins, 5 wins, maybe they get to 6 wins, I think that's going to be more of an indictment on Dable because it's not Joe Shane's fault that the defense gave up those points late against Denver. That's a coaching thing. That's a schematic thing. I don't think that falls on Shane. I think what happened in New Orleans doesn't fall on Shane. So I do think there's a world where if the results don't come, but Jackson Dart continues to look good and week in and week out, he continues to grow, he gets better, and you feel comfortable that you got your guy at quarterback. Because let's face it, Jamie, he's also going to have Cam Scatterbo on his resume as well if you're Joe Shane. Boy, does this matchup play perfectly for the Giants this week. They're running the ball really well. The Eagles have not been good against the run. They're towards the bottom half of the league in those numbers. So if you get to the end of the year, Abdul Carter has looked good. Thibodeau has looked good at times. Brian Burns has looked like a good trade and extension by Joe Shane. Jackson Dart's going to be on his resume. Cam Scatterbo is going to be a day 3 pick that ends up on his resume. Malik Neighbors looks like the better receiver from that draft class. You can say you got lucky, but he's there. That's the guy you took. Feels like you got a winner in Malik Neighbors. I know he's hurt, but feels so far year plus in that you hit a home run there. So it just feels like if those 2 tracks play out the way you envisioned, I do feel like Joe Shane keeps his job and Brian Dable loses his job. I think where it all comes tumbling down is if Dart came in and he floundered and he struggled and the results weren't coming. I think that's the world where you say, okay, the coach didn't maximize the quarterback talent, and the GM for the second time in extending Daniel Jones and now trading into the first round and getting Jackson Dart, you missed. You don't get a third chance in this league. So I do think we are trending towards a world where if they are going to make a change, and I'm still not sold that they are, I think it would be Dable over Shane because of how good Dart has looked.
The other thing that becomes interesting here, and I think from a logical standpoint, I think you're correct, but I also want to look at the situation of if you feel like Jackson Dart is on the right track, do you get rid of the offensive guy that is getting him there? Even if there's other elements. And I think sometimes and I want to be careful not to do this because I think sometimes we get such a linear way of thinking of head coach, offensive guy, offense has to be good, defense, head coach, defensive guy, defense has to be good, and there's no other elements of the job. Obviously, there are other elements of the job that Brian Dable has to manage and has to do better at.
like
But I
finding a
also do
kicker.
wonder if Dax. I do wonder if Dart is continues this stretch. Will they feel comfortable if they are going to fire somebody, firing the one that's the person is working closest with that quarterback that's playing well? The other factor of this is that there's more than half the season to go.
Sure.
And
10
obviously, the
games left.
early returns on Jackson Dart have been really strong. And I think not only from internally, but you hear about how other coaches and other players have talked about him. The Denver Broncos defense, Vic Fangio in particular this week, there's been a lot of very positive comments about Jackson Dart. But things can change quickly in the NFL. If I still feel the same way about him now, 10 weeks from now, then I think we're having a different discussion almost regardless of what the Giants record ends up being. The concern is that will there be some regression? As he plays a little bit more, there's more tape as he plays teams for a second time, for example, as you're going to see this week. There are a lot of other things that we might not quite feel as awesome about Jackson Dart in week 18 as we do now. I'm not predicting that. I'm not saying that that's what I'm looking for. I'm saying we have to be cognizant of that as a possibility. This is still a young quarterback on a team that's not playoff bound. Things can still spiral. And there's not exactly a great group of weapons around him right now with Malik Neighbors hurt. So, and we'll see if they end up pulling off a trade for another wide receiver before the deadline here. But it just makes this whole thing complicated because those two trains. Because if I'm a fan, which I am, I just care about how Jackson Dart and Scatterboo and these guys look and thinking, okay, we've got the pieces going forward, but you have a head coach and GM that are on the hot seat and do have a chance to not come back. And that's another avenue here. It's probably why Dart is playing so early, but it's also a factor in just like how they use him, what happens with this team, because at some point for Daboll and Shane, both, you still have to win some games. Like the optimism is nice for the fans, and Jackson Dart's going to be guaranteed to be on the roster in 2026, but those guys are not necessarily. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of balance these two things over the rest of the year, because obviously you always want to win games. I'm not saying that there's any issue with that, but there could be a very big difference between how Giants fans feel about the team and how ownership feels about the leadership of the team at the end of the season.
Well, that's what just makes losing to the Saints and losing the way that you did to the Broncos hurt, because there's a world where you beat the Eagles, you beat the Chargers, you beat the Saints, you beat the Broncos, and it's just a totally different dynamic. And I would go as far as to say, Jamie, we're not even discussing the hot seat anymore at that point. Like if they have those two wins against the Saints and the Broncos in their column, like they got it, they figured it out, and that's how razor thin the margin
you're
is.
Talking playoffs, right? They're 4-3 in that scenario, and you're talking playoffs. And you know what I mean? And you're like, all right, well, this team's turning around. Is this the Steelers team that had to inserted Ben Roethlisberger and went on a run type of a thing all those years ago? Like that's the conversation. And now it's like, we're still in this purgatory. We're still in this up and down of like, yeah, Dart looks good, but do we trust all the pieces around him, including the shot callers, to be with this team long term?
Yeah, and I look at this game against Philly and take away that it was a Thursday night game when they beat them last time. I mean, I have the box score up here and Jamie, it's like every break went their way. 3 for 3 in the red zone, right? They got touchdowns in all 3 drives in the red zone. They won the turnover battle. They didn't turn the ball over at all. They had 103 yards in kickoff returns over the course of the game. They converted nearly 69% of their third downs. I mean, every major statistic that you would think you need in order to beat the Eagles, the Giants had go their way. And not to say that it can't go their way again, but is it going to go their way again in Philadelphia on the road where it's the second time you've seen this team in less than a month? They found their offense again last week against Minnesota. Are you going to be able to run the ball the way that you did? Didn't have a single tackle for loss in the running game. Every rush was a positive play for the running game for the Giants. I know the Eagles' run defense has been less to be desired. Part of the reason why Brandon Graham was lulled out of retirement for the Philadelphia Eagles because they need help on that side of the ball. I just don't know, Jamie, if every major statistic, and let's face it, the Eagles are the more talented football team. You're going on the road. You need every break to go your way. Can't commit dumb penalties. Can't mess up your red zone opportunities. Can't give away free turnovers and extra possessions. Have to be efficient with the football. Got to be able to protect your quarterback. You have to do all of the things that, yes, I watched them do a couple of weeks ago when they beat Philly on Thursday night, but I just don't know how repeatable that is when the talent difference between these two teams is as large as it is.
Yeah. And I think that's obviously the concern. That's kind of the scenario that you're kind of sitting in right now of just trying to figure out like where are we in this rebuild? And do we have the right people involved? And then there's just a bigger question of even as I'm watching them on the screen right now, tease this game on Amazon Prime. Just because you have the quarterback doesn't necessarily mean that you have the right people in place everywhere else. And to your point, I'm not sure that Daboll and Shane are a package. They might be. They might not be. One could get fired. The other could be retained. They both could be fired. They both could be retained. Like, I think this entire the Giants and the Mars aren't typically. I know they had a little string there of like back to back to back 2-year coaches type of a thing that they hated. But for the history that the Mars have owned the Giants, they haven't been super reactionary. Sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. I do think that everything is still a little bit up in the air. And this, like I said, this game will be a really interesting test because it's one of those ones where it's a division game. This also has a chance to get bad. Like, I could see a scenario where this game spirals out of the Giants' control. And if that were to happen, the conversation around Daboll and Shane is going to get very loud this
And
coming week.
and here's why. Here's why. Because then you paint the narrative of you lost a game on the road to the Saints you shouldn't have lost. You gave away a game against the Broncos. You get embarrassed by your division rival. You've lost 3 of 4. At that point, you will have been 1-3 in the division through 4 games. I mean, the narrative is so easy to paint. Whereas if you win the game, okay, you're 2-2 in the division. You beat the defending Super Bowl champions twice. You can I don't want to say you fully forgive, but you can forgive what happened in New Orleans. You can kind of forgive what happened in Denver and take it as we've got a young rookie quarterback that's trying to learn his teammates, that's trying to learn this offense, that's trying to learn the speed of the NFL game. And yeah, there's going to be growing pains. We're going to lose to the Saints, but we're going to beat the Eagles. Yeah, we're going to give it away against the Broncos, but we're going to beat the Eagles again. We're going to beat the Chargers, right? Who, are right now, as we're recording this, beating up on the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday Night Football. And so you can accept those growing pains if there's real tangible results. What you can't have is those growing pains and it is another loss where in this time you get embarrassed, right? You just can't have that. And to your point, there is that fear that at any given moment with this Giants team, because what we've seen so far this year, it can go sideways in a hurry. Now, I think with Dart, that probably doesn't happen. I think he has shown enough here in the early couple of weeks of his career that he's going to be able to keep them in games, but he's a gunslinger, and there's always that risk that he has the multi-interception game, and that's the thing that dooms you. So
Yeah, and he should have had it this past week. Obviously, he has the very bad pick late, but I mean, he had a couple times he threw it right to Denver, or the ball that gets tipped and ends up going for a touchdown to Theo Johnson. I mean, like, so there have been some moments that haven't been perfect for Jackson Dart. It's just this game to me is a really interesting test for them in a lot of fronts. Do they run the ball? Do they remain patient in this game and run the ball more? Because I think a lot of people were criticizing how often they were throwing late in that Broncos game that helped allow enough time on the clock for Denver to come back. So there's just a lot of different things that you have to factor into this game. And it's going to be fascinating one way or the other. Because again, if you're in that locker room, you have to believe that you can win this game because you just beat this team not that long ago. But this also can be a situation where the other side gets paid a lot of money to coach them up too. And you're still a rookie quarterback with limited weapons. Like, this could, I don't know. I kind of have a bad feeling about the way I think this game is going to go. Now, it'll help the Giants if A.J. Brown doesn't play or is limited and whatnot. And again, they've had a lot of pieces that you like, but man, like, I kind of have a bad feeling about this because I feel like this is the formula for the Jackson Dart terrible game, right? Like, this is the formula you look at for the game that he comes right back down to earth. And that's not to say that you think of him differently long term, but this could be a game that could get ugly if that happens.
well, it goes back to what I said earlier in the week. You look at the Giants right now, and you think they can win any game they step on the field for. But you also think they can lose any game that they step on the field for. And that leaves you in a place of you just don't know what version of this team you're going to get. it's very volatile right now. They have not
Yes.
found their equilibrium as a football team. And that's okay. When evaluating Jackson Dart, you're going to go through those ebbs and flows, but you do want to find that equilibrium sooner rather than later, because that's then a more truer outlook of what this team can be with him under center. And maybe you get that this Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, you beat this team already once this year, so you can't say they can't do it again on
Yeah.
Sunday. Only the other team in town could be facing the second worst defense in all of football and be 6.5-point underdogs on the road. That is what the Jets face as they go on the road to face the Cincinnati Bengals, coming off of a big Thursday night win over the Pittsburgh Steelers, in which Joe Flacco, former Jet, Joe Flacco revenge game incoming
That
for the
is right.
Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, I
The
mean,
Knicks have more wins than the Jets on October 23rd.
Islanders have more wins than the Jets on October 23rd. Yeah.
You
All
and I
true
are tied for
statements.
the same amount of wins as the
Yeah.
Jets.
You and I have the same amount of wins as the New York Jets. I mean, I feel like I've said it all when it comes to this team in
Yeah.
what has gone wrong for them this season. It's more so, okay, like, let's go out there and see. Do I think it makes a difference who plays quarterback on Sunday? I really don't. Does Tyrod Taylor give the team a higher floor?
Chris, you're gonna have that you have that advantage, that competitive advantage by not revealing who your starter is early.
All
The
right.
Bengals are gonna have no clue when you step out there, and it's gonna reveal. It's like the 30th entrant in the Rumble. They're just gonna come out and be like, "Oh my God, it's Tyrod Taylor."
I'm glad you brought this up because I have been waiting to talk about this since it happened. This is Aaron Glenn not doing himself any favors. Like, there's just like you. This is where you mature in these press conferences. Like, you are 0-7. Like, there's no need to play secrecy. Guess what? You've played secrecy for 7 weeks. It hasn't helped you. Everyone's been able to figure out exactly what you were doing. Just name a starter. Now, if it's because you don't know the health of Tyrod Taylor and you may be considering Brady Cook starting this game, okay, I understand maybe you want to keep that close to the vest because you just don't know who you're starting. But if you know who your starter is, it just makes you look. What's the word that I want to use here for this? You're being a tryhard. Like, you're trying to be too much.
Saying. There are certain things in sports where when they happen, and they happen frequently enough, and you just sit back and you just kind of roll your eyes, and that's kind of what this was. I mean, Aaron Glenn's not the first coach and will not be the last coach to use that line when it comes to starting quarterbacks. You see it a lot. You see it in college. You see it in the NFL. It's just, and by the way, look, I'm not legally entitled to know your starter. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, if you don't want to announce your starter, you don't have to announce your starter.
But can I tell you why this is a bad idea?
Let me tell you
why this is a bad idea.
Go ahead.
Because if you didn't say anything, right? Competitive advantage. You get blown out on Sunday by Joe Flacco and the Cincinnati Bengals, you look like a moron. You look like a fool. You look like you don't know what you're doing. Like, you had to do this to gain a competitive advantage. What competitive advantage did you gain from it? Absolutely nothing. If you get blown out.
I think what's annoying us both about this is you're taking a situation that you don't control and you do control and trying to at the same time, because you don't control, Tyrod being hurt. You do control the decision overall, but you're taking something that isn't really that big of a deal and are trying to, it feels like, I don't think he actually is doing this, but it feels like from the outside that you're trying to, I don't know, outsmart us, like trying to prove that like you're more wily, and it's like when any coach does, it's not just Aaron Glenn, it's stupid.
It's doubly stupid when you're 0-7.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, to me, there's no shame in saying, I don't know who the starter's going to be yet. I haven't made a decision. We have an injury in the quarterback room right now. We're evaluating all options. You'll see on Sunday. That's all you have to say. The idea that to try to turn this into, in fact, I'm actually smarter than everybody, is what's annoying. And again, I don't think Aaron Glenn is intending to come across that way. There are some coaches that have, by the way, that do try to play the I'm the smartest person in the room at all times and everybody else is an idiot.
Yeah, he's coaching North Carolina right now.
Yes. But and others, at least that one's got some rings. not in North Carolina. But to me, it's just he is at times this season, and this pains me because I like Aaron Glenn a lot. And I was rooting for him over the last couple off seasons to get a head coaching job. But at times it feels like he's cosplaying a head coach. Like he almost feels like he is not comfortable with himself in this role just yet. So he is doing things that he thinks a head coach would do or thinks a head coach would say. And that's being compounded by the fact that there's a lot of pressure on him because it's New York. It's a lot of pressure because he's not winning at all. And I just think it's just kind of created this mess that always seems to follow the New York Jets. But to the point is, at the end of the day, you and I both know there's no competitive advantage here. Cincinnati is going to practice for both quarterbacks. Both quarterbacks have played multiple years in the league. There's a lot of film on both of these guys. There's a lot of similar things to what you prepare for within the offense. Like there's no competitive advantage here. It's just a very I don't know, just an almost like immature, not immature as a person, immature as a head coach thing to say, in my estimate.
Well, you mentioned that sometimes he gives off the feel like he's cosplaying as a head coach, that he's still, and I think to a large part he is still trying to figure it out. But it's so noticeable, at least I've noticed it, and the switch has flipped for me on this. If you listen to him in his day after media availability, so not the immediate post-game presser,
but yeah,
usually the Monday
after, yeah.
presser, he does this thing where whatever side of the ball he's struggling, he just makes the generic comment of, we know what's wrong, we're working on fixing it. We know what's wrong, we know what we need to address. And he says it every single week. And this week it was about the offense because the defense has played well. But it feels like he's saying it to convince you that he knows what the problem is. Like he's trying to convince us that he knows what he's doing. It feels like he's also trying to convince himself in some ways that he knows what's going on.
There's also, and I've thought this for a long time, and again, I've covered college, I've covered the NFL, talked to some very smart head coaches, people that are way smarter than me about football. There's also this element of this element of secrecy that sometimes is just ridiculous, because the idea that you would reveal to the media what you think is struggling is somehow going to help your opponent, as if they're not watching the same tape, as if they don't have the same high-level people in the organization spending hundreds of hours a week on film, is ridiculous. And I understand that there's a part of me that, because I have a media background, that I do feel some type of way about giving media reasonable answers. I also feel like the public deserves to have some sort of explanation on some things, because they pay a lot of money, and these coaches make a lot of money because of TV contracts and ticket sales and merchandise purchases and all these other things that are funded by the fans, that I think the fans deserve more than a canned answer from people getting paid millions of dollars. And I feel like that extends into the NFL as well. I really think it in college football, because a lot of states are paying. You're paying tax dollars for some of these coaches, or sometimes to not coach for you. But I don't necessarily need him to come up to the podium and break down on a clicker the X's and O's of everything that he thought goes wrong or went wrong. But when you give those sorts of hyper generic answers like you just mentioned on his Monday presser, we know what's wrong, we're going to fix it. It doesn't instill a lot of confidence if you don't have a history of doing that. You know what I mean? Like if Sean McVay said, I know what's wrong on offense, we're going to fix it. You know what? I'm going to give him a couple weeks on that generic answer, because he has proven that he can insert different pieces in different areas of that offense, and they'll go and they'll fix it. You know, if there's somebody of that nature, you haven't done it yet. You were a great defensive coordinator, but you haven't done it yet at the head coaching level. Your team hasn't even won a freaking game. You haven't put together a full 60-minute performance on both sides of the ball at all this year. I think at some point, again, I don't think he's being dismissive just to be dismissive. I don't think this is him having an attitude. I think this is him not understanding that he is doing things that make him look worse in these press conferences. Like there are two people that I feel like are there are two teams I feel like that are actively hurting themselves anytime anybody talks. It's the
Miami?
Jets and the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
And it's not a shocker that both of these two teams have ownership issues. They have issues at head coach and they have issues at quarterback. But whenever like Tua Tagovailoa comes to a mic in the last 3 weeks, he is saying something that's absolutely detrimental to himself. Mike McDaniel, same thing. Aaron Glenn is doing that to himself, not to quite to that degree, because I think the intent is different, but he doesn't have a history of winning as an NFL head coach. He doesn't have a history of a win as an NFL head coach. You have to be a little bit more forward about your plans forward and your plans to fix than he has been. At the end of the day, if we go back to this game specifically, I don't think it's going to matter. This is a winnable game.
Should be.
I mean,
It should be a winnable game.
I know Joe Flacco looked great on Thursday night, and I'm not saying, or last Thursday night, I'm not saying that we dismiss that. But I also remember 24 hours before that game started, people were making fun of the Bengals still and making fun of Joe Flacco and thinking, oh no, maybe they have to go to somebody else, or oh, they're like, so this is a game that is winnable. The Bengals defense is in complete disarray. Their starting middle linebackers now requested a trade. Trey Hendrickson wants out. They benched one of their corners on Thursday night because he hasn't been playing as well. So this is a team in defensive disarray, and they still have some offensive issues that they need to solve. Again, I think that they could have taken the step in the right direction against Pittsburgh, but you want to kind of see multi-week progress before you say, oh no, they fixed all their offensive problems. They fixed their running game. They fixed they fixed it all. We'll see what happens here. This is not good. Like, this is just, I start, and again, I'm not in that room. I'm not a beat writer for that team, so I'm not there every day. And there is a different sense. You can get a better sense of what the locker room feeling and everything else when you're there every day. But I do have some questions about whether or not the players in that room are responding to Aaron Glenn, because what I am seeing in the media makes me roll my eyes. If he's doing something similar in that locker room with actual players, they're just going to tune him out. And I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying it's a concern that I have.
Everything about this matchup screams a game that the Jets can win. The Jets want to run the football. The Bengals' run defense is there for the taking. The Bengals are the worst rushing attack in all of football. The one area of slight weakness for the Jets defense this year, although it's better than it's been in recent years, is their run defense. So they're going to throw the ball a ton if you're Cincinnati. Guess what? Sauce Gardner's been good this year. Hasn't been great, but has been good this year. Overall, the pass defense, the addition of Brownlee has turned their corner room around. Brandon Stevens, I know I've criticized him on the show a lot, has played better the last couple of weeks. They've been solid in their passing defense over the last 2 weeks. You talked about wanting a bigger sample size before saying that the Bengals solved their offensive woes. It's got a 2 full game sample size of the Jets defense being more like the group I thought they were going to be coming into the year. That makes me think that they made some adjustments, they made some tweaks, and they found something. This game is there for the Jets. Even as 6.5-point underdogs on the road in Cincinnati, everything you want to have an advantage in this game, you have. Yet all of that being said, until I see it, until I watch a team play a complete 4 quarters, because they have not done that once this season. They didn't do it against Pittsburgh. They couldn't finish the job in the 4th quarter. They didn't do it against Tampa. They played poorly in the first half and made a miraculous comeback to even take the lead in the 4th quarter of that game. They were no-shows against the Bills. They were no-shows against the Dolphins. They couldn't put together an offensive drive against the Broncos. They couldn't put an offensive drive together against the Panthers. They have not been able to play a complete 4 quarters. If Tyrod Taylor's under center, you certainly would think that the floor of the offense is better and they'll be able to move the ball a little bit better than they have. But I watched Tyrod Taylor play the first half against Tampa Bay. I watched Tyrod Taylor come into this game in the second half against Carolina. Hasn't been all that great. So it just feels like there's all the reason in the world to say that the Jets can win this game and get to 1-7. But until you see the Jets win a football game, how are you going to pick them? You just can't do it.
No, and I won't. I mean, it's winnable.
I'm not
going to pick them to win. And I assume Garrett Wilson's not playing as well. Obviously, there'll be
it doesn't look like it. Breece Hall's been also banged up this week, so
they need him because
Mason Taylor is potentially out for this game as well.
Jeez,
potentially.
That doesn't help.
They're not ruling him out, but he was banged up this week as well.
But I mean, we'll see. I mean, right now, it's crazy to think because the Bengals are not a well constructed football team either, but I don't know, man. Like this Jets team,
Can I read you?
I'm not feeling it. Go
Can
ahead.
I read you the injury report on the ESPN preview for this game for the Jets?
Sure.
Breece Hall, questionable with a knee. Tyrod Taylor, questionable with a knee. Mason Taylor, questionable with a quad injury. Garrett Wilson, questionable with a knee. Michael Carter, questionable with a concussion. Feels like very important players for the Jets to not have on the field
Yes.
potentially on Sunday.
Also, we should outlaw knees. That's my
So yeah,
take.
three of those 5 injuries are knee
Knee.
injuries. Yeah, I mean, it's just until I see it from them, I'm not going to. And this is why the way he's handled himself in the media is so bad, because if it is another loss, I just now no longer believe anything you say at the podium. And then here's the other thing. I want to get in front of this because I want to be able to, on Monday, if it happens, to be able to say I was ahead on this. If you win the football game, you're still 1-7. You got to act like it. Like, you can't pretend like this is your Super Bowl and that you got off the snot. Like, I need you to be business as usual at the podium and be like, we still got work to do. Good to get this first one, but we got to keep on rolling. Like, you got to pretend like this is just a ho-hum victory and you just got to move on. You cannot act like you did. And not that I had a problem with it in the moment because it was early enough in the season, but you can't be acting the way that you did when Will McDonald. You can't be doing that when you're 0-7. Well, I'm sorry, we can't have
I mean, it was a little different in week 1, but yes, I agree.
It's different when it's the second game of the season or third game of the season compared to now it's week 8 and you're 0-7.
Yeah, and you head into your bye, right? So it's, boy, a win will help alleviate a lot of the pressure. Because going 0-8 into your bye and stewing on that for 2 more weeks before you come out and play, I think the Browns at home, another winnable game. I don't know. It's again, it is a winnable game. I will not pick them to win the game.
Until I see it, until further notice, do not pick the New York Jets.
I
to
have
win
a
question.
Game. This is completely unrelated.
I love
I'm watching. Obviously, for those of you that haven't figured out yet, we're recording after the Thursday.
I said it earlier in the show.
Oh yeah, I don't listen to when you talk. So they're interviewing Kamani Vidal right now, which is customary. You know, you interview a player after the game. Why didn't they send the Thursday night crew out to Los Angeles for this game? Why are they not on the field like they always are, making Ryan Fitzpatrick take his shirt off or whatever?
Wait,
I just noticed that. Like they're sitting in the studio and they're sitting in a studio and they have Vidal on the headset, and I'm like, why aren't they? And especially of all places, Los Angeles.
Do we know where the
I feel like that'd be an easy place
studios
to
are?
To.
Where are the studios?
I don't know where the Prime Studios are. I just find it to be very odd. Also, why does Andrew Whitworth still have his hoodie on? You're indoors. Let's see. Where is
I'm looking up at the Amazon MGM Studios. That's a film and television production studio. It's in Culver City. Do you know what's also near Culver City?
Like, I don't know. It's just very odd to me, right? Like, of all the places, like there are certain places, like, okay. Like, it feels like getting to New York was a lot harder.
So at the assets of Amazon MGM Studios, one of them is Prime Video Sport. So I would assume that this is where
I would assume they're in LA. I just don't know why they're not there. Okay, it's completely unrelated. Nobody cares.
It's
things that just don't make sense to me.
That's fine. So you're picking the Bengals in this one, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm picking the Bengals. Eagles and Bengals.
I would agree. I would agree on both fronts.
I know. It's not really bold take.
Do you want to briefly touch on the 1-0 New York Knicks, or do you want to talk about the hottest team in the National Hockey League, the New York Islanders?
So we'll talk about the Islanders because I'll be honest with you, I have not watched much NBA right now. I will. It's just there's a lot happening. There's football, there's hockey.
It's funny. I was going to bring up the Knicks starting 1-0, and the take that I was going to have to share, and you didn't know this. The take I was going to have is it's hard for me to evaluate the Knicks. Now, it's Mike Brown, year 1 for him,
yes.
And so you are paying attention to the early stages of how he utilizes the players. But it's weird to say this about the Knicks, but with where this team is at in their expectation cycle, you really can't start taking this seriously until Christmas. Like, you just can't.
Well, and that's, I mean, you can kind of just say that about the NBA.
Fair enough.
Unfortunately. But yes, it's one of those ones where like there's only so many hours in the day. And I spent some extra time this week watching quarterbacks in the class, which is going to be something of note to you, Chris. I'm sure we'll talk about.
Thank you. I really appreciate the reminder
here very soon. And obviously the biggest news in the NBA today was not
the Knicks,
basketball related and not Knicks related. But again, good start. I saw Scatterboo there. I saw Judge and those guys there. So Judge Devin Williams, and I didn't see who the third. I can't remember off the top of my head who the third was Schlittler. I don't remember who the third person was there.
I just saw Aaron Judge hanging out with Carmelo Anthony.
Yes, and Carmelo was obviously.
By the way, speaking of former Knicks,
okay,
totally unrelated, but you
Don't
know
where
where
this
I
is
live.
going.
You know where I live, and you know the team that I watch here in town outside of the
Yes.
Knicks. Do yourself a favor, if you haven't, just Twitter search Amari Stoudemire. The dude looks like a brick house. He looks better than he did as a player.
I'm not surprised. I miss those 7 seconds or less Suns very much from when I was out there. But,
legend Amari Stoudemire.
Love Amari Stoudemire. So yeah, let's talk about the Islanders put up a touchdown.
Put a touchdown on the
Thursday.
Detroit Red Wings. Let's go.
And look, the Red Wings are a young team, and they kind of need their ass kicked a little bit here.
Yeah, well, happy to oblige.
They have been. Although Schaefer, I don't think had a point tonight, so he sucks.
He did not.
So I take back all the nice things I said about him. But no, it was a big game for the Islanders. They did not play Sorokin, so this was Rittich in net. So this is not a scenario of like, oh, they made the goaltender change and they only allowed but Heineman gets 2 goals in this game. They had one where they had almost everybody got a. It feels like almost everybody got a point in this game.
Yeah, the points were all over the place.
Only 6 players did not get a point in this game.
Horvat had 2 assists.
Yeah, you got to go from Holmstrom, Barzal, D'Angelo, Peugeot, Palmieri. Shout out
Anders Lee with 3 assists.
Anders Lee still going it, and yeah, I mean, look, you have to be excited with the way that they're playing lately. They've kind of, what is that? 3 in a row, 4 in a row,
4 in a row.
It's 4 in a row for them. So
that's right.
3 of them at home. You Oilers at Senators, home Sharks, home Red Wings. But you're feeling a lot better about it after the Penguins, Caps, Jets stretch was rough. And obviously it's early, but they're doing a lot better than the other team in town right now. And I think if you look at what the Islanders are able to do and having those young pieces, and again, hopefully, Sorokin gets to where he needs to be now with his guy as the goalie coach, as we talked about on Wednesday's show. I mean, there are wild card spots up for the taking in the East, and I don't really want to talk about the Rangers. Played a really fun hockey game on Thursday night, did the Rangers and the Sharks, but the Rangers just cannot, they just can't win at home. They just can't, and it's been incredibly frustrating. I think, what are they, 0-4-1 at home or something like that now?
They are
3-1?
0-4-1
at home. Like, I mean, there's
so good time to go on a 4-game West Coast swing.
I mean, losses are losses. You do what you can, but like, I remember this as back when I was strictly a fan. It feels worse when they lose in front of you.
Of course, it just always does.
It feels worse when you're in Madison Square Garden and they're losing. I give them credit a little bit. I mean, they got down really early in this game and they fought back, but it wasn't a good game for Shesterkin. Again, I appreciate them coming back and tying it up multiple times in this game. I mean, they did fight. They lose fairly early in the overtime period, but I don't like the way this team's playing right now. I mean, their record isn't horrible because I think they're undefeated in regulation on the road. I think it's like 3-0-1 or something. And so they're just kind of hanging out there. But, you look at these 2 teams, just the 2 New York teams going into the season, and right now, again, it's October 24th as you're listening to this, 23rd as you're recording. Early. But you can't tell me the vibes and the feeling around the Islanders, who may only be a couple points ahead of them in the standings in actuality, is a lot different than what the vibes are right now around the Rangers.
Tied on points, Islanders do have 2 games in hand. The Rangers have played 9 games already. The Islanders have only played 7, so there could be a little bit of a gap there that develops. But if I would have told you before the year who has the playoff aspirations and who doesn't, you would say the Rangers have the playoff aspirations. The Islanders are still trying to find their footing. And so far, through a handful of games, which team looks like the playoff team and which looks like the team that's in a state of transition? Looks like the Rangers are the team in transition, and the playoff-bound team is the Islanders. So it's been fun.
Yeah,
I'm excited. They play the Flyers over the weekend on Saturday. I get to get up early and watch that one. So exciting times right now. They're starting the season off hot, and hopefully they can continue it right now. Again, the 4-game winning streak, the third best streak, tied for the second best streak in the Eastern Conference, only behind the Devils, who have won 6 in a row.
Yeah, they've won 6 in a row after I believe they dropped the first game of the season, and then they've won 6 in a row since then. And technically, I know it's early. It's fun because it's like 7 to 9 games into the season, or I guess 6 to 9 games into the season, depending on where you are. But Islanders are in a playoff spot.
Yes, they are.
So good for them.
As a Mets fan who watched his team miss the playoffs, as a Jets fan who doesn't have a win, you betcha I'm going to take the Islanders holding on to a playoff spot right now, 7 games into the season. I'll take moral victories anywhere I can get them.
I think I'm more surprised that the Penguins are playing as well as they are in that division right now. There's talk about a team that had some bad vibes coming into the season. You know, they're 6-2, second place in the Metro right now. But I don't know. It's super early, but
plenty of time.
But you know that stat, and I have to pull it up, and I'll pull it up at some point before our next show because I used to reference it a lot on my old hockey podcast, the Natty Hattie with Craig Morgan and Luke Lipinski. But there is that very weird, like if you're below the playoff line on American Thanksgiving, your odds of making the playoffs are like very, very small. It's like something crazy, and it's held true for like 20 years now. That you pretty much almost have to be in a playoff spot by Thanksgiving. Or else you're probably not going to climb into it. I know it's weird, and it says like, oh wow, like 7-8 weeks into the season, like that's really tells you, but like it's a trend that's held for pretty much since the last full season lockout.
We're back Monday, breaking down all things Jets and Giants. If the Jets pick up their first win of the season, if the Giants do it again against the Philadelphia Eagles, we'll break it down. All of it. You want to use one late? Okay, go ahead.
Light timeout, because I feel like even though it doesn't involve a New York team, we should mention it. World Series is starting.
Oh, I don't care.
Our final word should just be a prediction.
Who gives a hoot?
Just give a prediction.
Canada. Go Canada.
Pick a team and how many games?
Toronto in 7.
Dodgers in 5.
Dodgers bullpen is a question mark. It is a major question mark.
And now Vesia is out.
Yes.
Sounds
very
like
bad.
a family tragedy.
Yeah, sounds not
so
good.
Obviously very understandable, but also, thoughts and prayers go out to him and his wife and his extended family. But yes, there are weaknesses to the Dodgers, but
I mean, they put Kershaw back on the roster.
Yeah. Hey, closer. By the way, speaking of Dodgers closers, I am very, just from a human interest standpoint, it is touching to me, and I'm happy that Roki Sasaki has found himself, at least short term, a good role on this team, considering obviously the expectations that were surrounding him, how bad he was as a starter to start the year. He's obviously notoriously a very emotional player. And I mean, we had scenes of him early in the season, him crying in the dugout. He obviously gets sent down, comes back up. Obviously, long-term, they want him to be a starter, but he has been I know there's no heartwarming stories on the Dodgers because everybody hates the Dodgers, but if you were looking for a heartwarming story, it is the Roki Sasaki playoff run that he's had in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think everybody outside of the Los Angeles metropolitan area is rooting for the nation of Canada and the Toronto
I'm
Blue Jays.
conflicted. Very conflicted.
There is
as a Yankees fan, very conflicted right now. But I guess the thing that'll put me over the top is I would like Don Mattingly to get a ring in some fashion. So I will be, I guess, rooting for Toronto. But I don't really see. I'm going to ask you about this, Chris. I know we're off on a last second tangent here. I am not somebody that is a fan of or will ever do a my team is eliminated, so what team should I root for deal that I see a lot. That's not how it works. My team gets eliminated. I'll still watch what's going on, but I ain't rooting for nobody.
I'm not rooting for anybody, yeah.
Yeah, like I thought, I'm going to adopt the Phillies as
No.
I'm not adopting nobody.
No. Do I want a
My
certain
team's
outcome? Sure.
Sure,
But
I
I'm
might
rooting
want
for
one.
it.
I might bet on something. I might do all that other stuff.
I'm not rooting for it, no.
But rooting for, accepting another team, I ain't doing it.
I mean, if I was just basing it off of Mets connections, I'm Toronto all the way. Chris Bassett, Max Scherzer, Andres Jimenez, lots of former Mets.
A lot of former Mets on
the Toronto Blue Jays. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I don't want anybody. Now they're interviewing Udonis Haslem. So
you
I'm
are
glad they stayed in the studio.
You're enthralled by The
It
post game
just
show.
doesn't make. I just don't understand. I mean,
Just turn it
I
off,
understand.
man. You
I
can
guess
just hit the button.
I will. I can't turn it off right now. I'm sitting here. I will
You don't
turn
have
it
the
off when
remote
I
near
get
you.
up.
Like I have my television remote
No,
right here. I turned the game off the
I
moment
don't.
it
I
was
left
done.
it over there. I left it over there so I could just
Sounds like a
look
you
up and I
problem,
know
not
that.
a.
No, but yeah. So to me, I'm hopefully as a non-fan of either of these teams, we have an exciting long World
Yeah, that's all you
Series.
want. You want it to be entertaining.
I'm just not sure it's gonna be. Freaking Dodgers, man.
They're ruining baseball.
No, I will go off another half-hour tangent. I will not. The teams that are spending at the top aren't ruining baseball. It's the
Yes.
teams that are spending at the bottom. And oh, by
Yeah.
the way, did you see a nice little chart that came out about the percentage of revenue that gets sent back into the team? Yeah, somebody should ask why the New York freaking Yankees aren't spending 50% of their budget back on their team. The New York Yankees.
And with that,
Like, look, I know there's been a lot of whitewashing in Yankees fandom about the George Steinbrenner era and some of the really bad things that he did. Obviously, him getting basically suspended from baseball for a while and how that actually helped lead to the Yankees dynasty. And there's a lot of things that go to that. But however, this element of it, of not doing anything and everything you can to win, that's not something George would have stood for.
real quick, before we head into the weekend, I will do it because if I let Jamie do it, we'll be here for another 45 minutes. Model bets for the weekend. DeAndre Swift. If you can get his rushing yards 54.5, you're in. If you can get Bijan Robinson total yards at 122.5 or better, you're in. J.K. Dobbins rushing yards 66.5 or better, you're in. Cam Scatterbo 55.5 for his rushing yards or better, you're in. And Jalen Hurts passing yards 204.5. If you can get at that number or better, and by better I mean lower than that, you're in for the model this weekend.
Yep. And some of those numbers have already changed, by the way, but most of them should still be available to you. I think the only one that changed right now as we're recording is Swift, but
and if you're okay with accepting the juice that comes with it, you can always take Jalen Hurts over 200 passing yards and do the same thing as what the model is saying.
All the normal stuff. We're not sponsored by anybody. I don't care where you bet. Don't care how much you bet. Don't care if you bet or don't bet. Have fun with it. Like that. We're if you think you're gonna become a millionaire off of this, you're not.
And I'm the first person to say this because I do this with the model number all the time. If I go in and I get to a model bet late, and like I'll just use Swift as an example, if his number is up at 58.5 or 57.5 by the time the game starts, I will just take the lower odds and go 55 plus, and I'll just make sure I get in at the number that we like. So that's what I do on a pretty regular basis if I miss out on a model bet. So good luck if you're betting this weekend. If you're following us in the model, we're back on Monday to break it all down. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you then.